This is Ethan Morton from Purdue Men's Basketball, and you're watching Boilers in the Stands.
What's up, ladies and gentlemen? We are back on our first ever post-game show in a losing effort for our Purdue Boilermakers. So certainly bittersweet in a lot of ways. Have some things planned here for today. And we were hoping to do that in a winning fashion over the rivals, Indiana Hoosiers. But I think we all knew that this was certainly something possible. Anything is possible in Assembly Hall when you're taking on the rivals, as we saw last year as the IU fans stormed the court for the second year in a row, taking down the number one team in the country, for now the Purdue Boilermakers. So, definitely not what we wanted to see. They stormed back from 16 points, but fell short ultimately in the end. And we're going to talk all about why they did. Please, while you're here watching this show, hit the like and subscribe button. If you're tuning in from YouTube, go ahead and follow us across all platforms. I am your host, Gregory Braggs Jr. Alongside me, as always, is my guy, Craig Bowers from Boiler Diehards Facebook group, and big thing, obviously staple of what we do here at Boilers in the Stands. And beneath us is Joe Jackson and Aiden Kuntz, our co-host here for what we do with our post-game shows and everything in between. So thank you for joining us. Instant reactions. Let's get right into it. Craig, tough loss today. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think there's several things to jump off on here from a statistical standpoint. Obviously, the turnover number wasn't good, right? I think we end up with 16 turnovers. Most of those came in the first half. I think Zach ended up with 3. Braden ended up with a couple. And this is maybe the first game that you would say our freshmen maybe looked a little bit rattled out of the gate. They came back together in the second half, did some really good things late as they try to make that run in the second half, but certainly just a little bit rattled coming out of the gate here. And I think maybe the first time we can say that, I think we all maybe need to take a step back too and realize in the eyes of a seating committee that this is, if we were going to take an L somewhere, I know this is our rival, but if we're going to take an L somewhere, this was probably the best place to do it, on the road against a ranked team, against a rival. I really have a hard time seeing us not still being ranked number 1 and being on the 1 seed line in projections come Monday.
Yeah, certainly something to think about big picture. There's certainly silver linings you can take from all of this. I mean, for them to come back, and instead of losing by 20 on the road, which is a part of how they determine these resumes. They bring it to a tight, close loss. And, you did have teams in the Big Ten lose today as well. And we'll get to that later. Joe, instant reactions. What do you got?
Yeah, no, it was good fight in the second half. Obviously, that first half was abysmal, the worst defensive half probably of the season that I can think of. Part of it is IU just hit a bunch of shots, and that's going to happen at times. But and we'll go over this in a bit. I think it really came down to turnovers and then the guard play. Lawyer got going a bit down the end. Smith was good, facilitating. Then he looked timid trying to go at Trace. But, and Hood-Schifino he probably hit 5-6 mid-range pull-ups, and IU could have matched, or Purdue could have matched that. So I think that's really what it came down to. It was the guard play. IU just had it a little bit better, took care of the ball a little bit more, and that's a plus being at home. That's a recipe for a W.
Yeah, absolutely. Certainly Purdue built up the recipe for disaster in a lot of ways. And as you mentioned, when we go over these team stats, which we'll be pulling up here in just a few moments, we'll go over some of that stuff. Aiden, your instant reaction for this game.
Yeah, I mean, I echo these guys. I think, Coach Payne always talks about you got to be 10 points better on the road, right? And that might be 15 points better in order to get a win at Assembly Hall. And no one watching that game, I think, would have said that Purdue was 10 or 15 points better than IU tonight. It wasn't one of those, we got unlucky. No, IU just outplayed Purdue tonight. It came down to who got more out of the supporting cast around their All-American big man. You look at IU, Trey Galloway had some huge moments in there, huge moments. Even Malik Renew had a couple of big-time baskets when the lead, Purdue was threatening to take the lead. And then, of course, Jalen Hood-Schifino, with the theme of freshman, he was clearly the best freshman on the floor. He was the third best player in the game. And I don't know that it was all that close. And of course, that's capped off with an incredible finish over Edey there at the end. And, I think, again, like these guys said, if you hadn't turned it over in a couple spots, obviously that Braden pass that he tried to force to Edey out after the baseline out of bounds when it was 67-65 sticks out. But just a couple too many mistakes in this one, and we'll move on to the next.
Yep. On to the next one at the end of the day. Losses are no fun. We're certainly going to try to find our silver linings as fans, but nobody likes to lose, especially to your rivals. But at 22-1, now 22-2 on the season, it was bound to happen. Painter has said it multiple times in some of the post-game shows, talking when people are giving him his flowers for his geniusness of this year. He's like, hey, guys, we've won a lot of close games, and if we had lost a few of those, the conversation would be different. So tip your cap in a lot of ways to the way IU played, and then you move on to the next one. So before we get into our stats of the game, I do want to give a shout out to our sponsors. We have some sponsors now, and we want to make sure we give them the proper shout outs, and that's exactly what we're going to do right now. And so those instant reactions were brought to you by Fanbags Cornhole, Chicago's official supplier of professional cornhole boards and bags. Choose from any of their officially licensed designs or have my boy Brian design a custom set using anything from a selfie to your company's logo. Visit www.fanbagscornhole.com and use the promo code BRAGS to get 10% off your entire order. That's www.fanbagscornhole.com and use the promo code BRAGS for 10% off. Step up your game with Fanbags Cornhole. I got a little something here. And there it is. Thank you to our new sponsors here, Fanbags, doing right by us. So we want to make sure we always do right by them, and make sure you go and look at their product. It's the best in the business. Some of the best boards around. I got a pair in my garage. So let's get into the games, the stats of the game. And that's exactly what we're going to do right now, to break down exactly the nuts and bolts of how everything kind of transpired the way it did. Certainly wasn't pretty at times for Purdue. but that's what happens in a loss. So team statistics for the day. Purdue shoots 51% from the field. Nothing to hang your head about. IU shoots 53% from the field. Purdue on 29 of 57 shooting. IU just a little better on 30 of 57 shooting. One shot better, actually, to be exact. Pretty close when it didn't feel like that for most of the game. 33% from three-point land for Purdue, only 40% from IU. 6 of 18 from three, 4 of 10 from three for IU. Free throws. This is where the killers come into play. 59% from the free throw line for Purdue, 10 of 17 from the free throw line overall. 83% from the free throw line for IU, 15 of 18 there. So that's a big one. And then the next stat, these are the two that pretty much cost the game in a lot of ways. 16 turnovers for Purdue. I believe 11 of those were in the first half, 8 by IU. Points off those turnovers, only 8 points off the turnovers for Purdue, 20 points off turnovers for the Indiana Hoosiers. 38 total rebounds to 22 for IU, 21 defensive, and then 17 on the offensive glass for Purdue, 14 rebounds defensively, and 8 off the offensive glass for IU. Second chance points, 12 for Purdue to IU's 8. Bench points, 17 for Purdue. The bench continues to have good games out here. 15 for IU. 44 points in the paint to 40 for IU as Trace Jackson-Davis and Zach Edey faced off today in a very, very impressive matchup from both of those two. Only 8 fast break points for Purdue, 12 for IU, 3 blocks for Purdue, 5 for IU, and assists, 15 for Purdue, 11 for IU. And then lead time. This is probably the biggest, one of the more shocking numbers that we've seen all season. Purdue only led for 35 seconds in this game, and IU led for 39 minutes and 11 seconds, basically the entire game for IU. We haven't seen that all year long where a team's really taken it to Purdue like that. So those are the stats of the game. Anything that stands out to you in those regards, Craig? Because certainly interesting.
I mean, obviously turnovers and free throws, right? The two things that I go to every game are free throw attempts, made free throws, and total rebounds. We dominated in free throws. I think we were plus 14 or plus 16. Sorry, in rebounds. Plus 14 or plus 16 in rebounds. But our made free throws was less than them. We shot a way worse percentage. Have to be able to knock those down. It seemed like some nerves early on. But I think we'd have to go some advanced metrics with Joe maybe on some of his sides. I don't think we can overstate how, like, IU hung a 50 burger on the first half and offensively. And the two common themes of that was Ethan Morton was out for a large portion of that, and Zach Edey was out for a decent amount of that. So, you know, if we went to some plus minus in that stretch or something like that, Joe, or defensive efficiency during that stretch, I'm betting that there's a stark difference when Ethan and Zach are on the floor together compared to when they weren't.
Yeah, I don't have those numbers yet. If they pop up during, I will definitely mention them. But yeah, first half, Ethan was a -3, which was a team high. First was also a -3. IU in the first half was 1.42 points per possessions, that's basically equivalent to making 75% of your twos. So that's a pretty wild number. And then the second half, they were only at 1 point per possession. So, you know, the defense stepped up. They only scored 29 points in the second half.
Well, let's pause the stats of the game for a moment because we have a special guest joining us. He's just leaving Assembly Hall now. Maybe his service isn't ready. I'm going to text him, but Ryan Klein's getting ready to jump on. He just texted me, and so go ahead with what you're saying, and I'll continue to communicate him because it looks like his service is a little choppy right now. Yeah, no,
I think Craig hit a lot of it. The free throws were tough. The turnovers are tough. Rebounding was good, which is you know, IU's also a good rebounding team, so that was at least a positive. But 17 to 8 offensive rebounds, 10 of those came from Edey. Edey had a double-double with just pure offensive rebounds, which is, you know, still just cool to see. But yeah, I don't have the numbers per se on the pick and roll defense. It can't be good. It's going to be one of the worst on the season efficiency wise. So, and that's, turnovers, free throws, and then not being able to defend pick and roll well. Like, I don't want to say maybe it's as simple as that, but it might be kind of as simple as that. I guess not making
and
jumps in the first half.
Joe, like I hate to be, and Greg, cut me off if Ryan jumps in at any point here, but
For sure.
I hate to be the guy who looks at individual plus minus. I usually think that's a weak stat for a single game, but you look at Mason Gillis's plus minus for the game. He was a minus 11, lowest on the team, and that really checks with the eye test, right? Defensively, we talked about in the last show, we did a whole Furst versus Gillis debate, and we kind of explained that Furst has been quite a bit better defensively than Gillis this season. And tonight, with Paint deciding to take Edey off of Trayce Jackson-Davis, it was either going to be Furst or Gillis, and Gillis just wasn't good, man. He did not have enough length to get back to Trayce Jackson-Davis. They were running high ball screens as usual. Jackson-Davis was slipping to the short roll, and Gillis just did not have the length and quickness to get back to Trayce, and then we were in a disadvantaged situation. He also missed a bad box out on Race Thompson at the end of the game there that maybe would have really helped Purdue there. So I didn't think this was one of Mason's best games.
Okay, and I think we're ready for our special guest. If his camera, I don't know, I can see him in the background, but I think his
Squint.
internet is still choppy. Ryan, if you can hear us, just take your time, bud, and wait till you can you hear us, Ryan? Can slightly see him. It's our guy Ryan Klein just leaving Bloomington. Can you hear us, Ryan? We can see him now. Well, that's a start. I'll just continue to work with him in the background. Wait, there he is. Can you hear us, Ryan?
Yes, kind of. You guys are.
Yeah, his internet, just leaving assembly. You got 900 people walking out of there. I think he's trying to get to his car. We'll just effort him once he gets away from the madness. I'm sure there's dumpster fires and they're flipping cars and everything else, because at the end of the day, this is IU's Super Bowl. So congrats to them on winning their Super Bowl. The real Super Bowl is next Sunday with the Eagles and the Chiefs taking on each other in Arizona. But congrats to IU for winning their Super Bowl 2 years in a row. Hey, but Purdue's got bigger and better plans down the road, I have a feeling. So go ahead with what you were saying, Aiden.
Yeah, another stat for me that jumped off beyond Mason Gillis just really being a net negative in this one. You got to look at Zach Edey's line. I mean, it's a loss, so you hate to talk about it. But Zach Edey was utterly dominant in that second half. Craig and I had mentioned that, it felt like he was losing the battle a little bit to Trayce there in the first half, and he responded in that second half. What, he had 8 in the first 4 minutes, his first shift, as he would call it. Just completely dominant. I know he had 5 turnovers, and a lot of that was in the first half, but anytime he got it within the scoring area, and for him, the scoring area is pretty large down there. He was scoring it with ease, 15 of 19, like just 10 offensive rebounds, 2 assists, 2 big assists there where they tried to dig down off shooters. He kicked it back out, definitely on the Jenkins 3, and maybe one other one that we got a basket off of. But Edey was a beast, and kind of this whole TJD Edey talking point, it felt like Edey firmly established himself as a more dominant interior force in this one.
Yeah, I think that's the probably only positive out of this is like Edey was dominant. Sure. Second half alone, 18 points, 10 rebounds, 2 assists, 2 turnovers, 3 blocks, 20 minutes plus 10. Obviously it's in a loss, so it's not as meaningful, right? Like I don't think we're saying that or anything, but it was good at least that he really just proved himself in another tough matchup.
Yeah, I mean, those are the silver linings. I mean, I'm sure some fans don't like to, they want to focus on why you lost, and that's fine. It's fair. But there certainly are. I mean, they fought back. I don't know. Sam Watkins says crashing the court shows no class. I don't think it doesn't show class. They're kids. You pay a lot of money to go to a IU versus Purdue game. You pay $200 plus to sit way up in where you can barely see. like where it's not even worth paying for a ticket. They want to storm the court. They're more than welcome to. Have your fun, throw your party. You won the Super Bowl. Congratulations. But the caveat is you storm the court. You are not the big brother. They always, the whole moniker of this rivalry is Purdue's a little brother. And I believe that torch was passed last year. This was something me and Craig talked a lot about on shows last year. To me, storming the court is a term of endearment. Now we're starting to get a little more used to being the hunted, and it's different. Last year, it felt very unique to watch 6 different schools storm the court on Purdue. But when IU specifically, as your rival, is storming the court, not only is it a term of endearment, but it shows the turning of the tide in this rivalry. That's how they feel when they beat you just once in a regular season game. So doesn't make anybody feel any better. But at the same time, that to me is my observation from that. Go ahead, Craig. What are your thoughts with some of these stats of the game?
I mean, just it's pretty simple to me. Turnovers and free throws. I mean, like I said, I'd like to see some advanced stats defensively in regards to Ethan and Zach being on the floor. Was going back on Twitter, back and forth a little bit with some guys about that. Oh, it's pretty easy, apparently, just get Zach off the floor. Well, yeah, but in that same amount of time that Zach was on the floor, we had a bunch of turnovers early on. So I don't think it's as simple as that, but I mean, at some point we have to have a real conversation, and I love what TKR brings to the table. I love it offensively, but man, there's some room to grow in terms of post defense.
Yeah.
And when Zach is on the floor, compared to TKR, that rim protection is just completely different right now.
And I just think overall his strength on both, like he has good footwork offensively. The one thing I don't like, and we brought this up a few times on post games, is they only go to his post game. Like they throw it to him in the post when I know he's capable of shooting. Turn around, square a guy up, get face to face with them and shoot every once in a while. You're not Zach Edey. You do have a great, have nifty moves on the post, good footwork, but to go to it every time. And I get Purdue likes to play inside out, meaning you throw it into the post and work your way out from that, let them come and double. But he just doesn't have the strength. I mean, nobody has the strength of Zach Edey, but just overall the strength of what a good post player is going to have. The way he gets his points is getting around guys, outsmarting them in a lot of ways. And, his strength on both ends was on display, or lack thereof. He needs to get stronger in the offseason. He has game. He will be a good player for years to come here at Purdue. But if he wants to be a great player, I think he's got to hit the weight room a little more. We're going to try Ryan one more time here. How you doing, Ryan Klein? Can you hear us? Hey, Ryan, we can see you and we can hear you. Can you hear us? He's there. I mean, look at I promised everybody he would be here, and now he's here. And his service, he keeps trying. It's not for lack of trying. Our guy Ryan Klein is trying his hardest to join the show and give his thoughts. He was at Assembly Hall with his friend. He got the tickets for his buddy. And obviously they're going home pretty somber. So he's doing everything he can to come on here and give his thoughts. I kind of feel bad that he has to go through so much effort, but this is kind of what you work through with when you're streaming live like this. So we'll just continue to try to effort him in. And we'll move on to our next segment. But before I do, I did want to give a quick shout out to we have 2 sponsors here that have joined us, and we're very grateful for those guys. And I definitely want to shout them out before we move on to our next segment. And that's our guys with Shire Insurance. And just want to make sure we get everybody the proper shout outs that we do today. So as life changes, your insurance needs change. Shire Insurance Services in Crown Point has been helping clients with their changing insurance needs for almost 30 years. Buying your first home? Start with Shire. Need to insure that Purdue memorabilia? Start with Shire. Expanding your business? Start with Shire. whatever your insurance concern or need, we are ready to help make those things easier for you. Call 219-663-7274 or search online at www.shireinsurance.com. So make sure, we actually just, you just got to make sure you get good insurance. If you're considering switching up, need some better insurance, start with Shire. Those guys are as good as it gets, and they're diehard Boilermaker fans too. So you're supporting a good cause and a good group of guys over there. Shout out to my guy Troy for jumping on board here with what we're doing here at Boilers in the Stand. So that moves us on to our next segment, and we can get back into any team stats that you're interested in. But the next segment I want to do, and we've been doing this a lot this year here recently, is Joe busts out the chalkboard. And we, kind of break down whatever Joe highlights as something that he found fascinating during the game to get you to understand a little bit of the X's and O's behind things. So what do you got for us today, Joe?
Yeah, today we're just going to be looking at the pick and roll defense. I think it was the most important aspect on defense and something that Purdue struggled with. So let's get into it. I realize now that this is backwards. And if I do this, I think it's not backwards.
All right, but before you do, one more time.
Okay,
Can you hear us, Ryan? Can you hear us, Ryan?
Jeff.
Look at him. Hey, Ryan. This guy. Can you hear us, Ryan? Oh, this guy. All right. You go back to what you were doing. I'm going to call him. How's that sound?
Works for me. So, and you can see the reflection, trying to just work out all the kinks kind of in this. But
no, we got you.
Yeah, okay. So we're saying IU has the ball here. We're just like Hood Schifino. This is Trace Jackson Davis, and then role players. This right here is going to be Edey because Edey wasn't guarding Trace, just for mobility issues. And the key here was, and what Aiden talked about, it was Gillis just struggled in this hedge, and that's what I'm going to show. This hedge coverage, whereas First was because of First's length and athleticism, he can kind of match Trace Jackson Davis a little bit more. Obviously, Trace is skilled enough that he still scored his sum, but generally like this. So, Trace Jackson Davis was going to come, sets a screen here, and he kind of just slipped always. Like maybe he actually makes contact there, maybe not. But as that's happening, Mason Gillis or First, he's coming out to hedge, and so that means he's coming up here and he's trying to get this ball handler to go more back here, right? So he's trying to push him away, and then he's going to recover. Edey's kind of scooting here. So as the ball gets here, Trace Jackson is kind of rolling here, and Gillis is up here. The pass goes here. So now that that's happened, and as I do this more, I'll get quicker and quicker with it. So now Trace kind of has the ball here. Mason Gillis and a guard are kind of here. They're trying to get back. Edey now has to step up. And you kind of just see already the issues that this is going to cause, especially when Edey had fouls. If Trace goes at Edey kind of has to stand back a little bit. He said it before, and I agree. Payne agrees. I think like sometimes a layup for the opposing team is worth more, or Edey not picking up a foul is worth more than the opposing team scoring a layup. So sometimes if Edey steps up, he's going to rotate here. So now this defender has to rotate down to cover the 4, which is usually like Renault or Race Thompson. Usually in this case, this is like Newman, Lawyer, Jenkins, kind of like those guard wings. And then once that happens, like you just kind of put the defense in rotation. Now, what First was able to do is he was able to actually get back well. Gillis was more caught up here, and because of the size, wasn't able to really get back. First was actually able to get back oftentimes. And so now Trace would have the ball, and you'd actually have, First kind of back here. So now Edey doesn't have to rotate as much. And that's just kind of a big difference, I think, with Gillis and First is First had the size to be able to kind of affect that more, is where Gillis had struggled a little bit. Aiden, you think was I pretty good with that?
Yeah, no, I totally agree, Joe. I think that was a big piece of the game. Obviously outside of the self-inflicted wounds, the turnovers, and to the turnover point, like IU played great. They really heated up the ball. They had a lot of ball pressure. They were physical with Purdue, and they certainly contributed into why we turned the ball over. But yeah, I think defensively, just some miscommunications, some physical limitations from Gillis. And then the key point was Edey, this was the first game really, or the second or third game that Edey really was impacted by foul trouble, not because he had to sit on the bench that long, but because on those contests at the rim with Trace, he was hesitant for most of the game. Then at the end, he started to wall up, and Trace can't score over him when he walls up. And obviously Race Thompson gets that rebound and hits the free throws. That was a big moment in the game.
Yeah, I mean, they did such a good job to me of, when Purdue doubled, Trace Jackson Davis is a good passer.
Yeah.
But that second and third pass, they were just on point today with all of that. And guys were knocking down shots too. That's a big part of it. Miller Kopp hit a few of his open shots in the first half. They came ready to play. I mean, at the end of the first half where they found Renault, I believe, wide open underneath the hoop. That was just great passing and playing off of what Purdue was doing defensively. So I just think they came ready today. And I said it earlier, maybe out of frustration a little bit, but if IU played every game like they were playing Purdue at home, they'd be one of the best teams in the country. The problem is
Sure.
IU tends to have lapses and that's not too much of it. It's a little bit of a shot at them because they're pissing me off today, but it is the truth. I mean, 2 years in a row, they play like their hair's on fire right out the gate, especially in those first halves. It's just madness. And halftime honestly brought the tone down. It was like, It was almost nice that halftime came because when the second half started, the loudness and the eruption of the crowd was a little subdued. But if they came with that same energy every game, and I guess that just goes without saying, but at the same time, IU and Illinois were certainly teams people thought would be at the top of the Big Ten this year, favored to win the Big Ten in a lot of ways. And I think you're starting to see that round into form for both Indiana and Illinois. And we'll get to Illinois later. They fell to Iowa, but they still looked, they battled that whole game and lost 80-78. But I think both those two teams are starting to come into their own a little bit. Specifically for IU, Craig, what are your observations as to how they played lately? Because they've won 6 of 7. Yeah, they fell in the trap game to Maryland. Jalen Hood-Schifino didn't come to play as far as shooting the basketball, but they certainly seem like they're starting to round into form, and that's without Xavier Johnson. You're
muted, Craig.
I got you.
Muted.
You're good.
I don't know that it's a trap game to Maryland. I mean, Maryland is one of the best defensive teams in the Big Ten, and Ken Palm reflects that. And IU's a way better home team than an away team if you look at their metrics. So I don't know that I'd call that a trap game. Other than, I think it's more the fact that Maryland just played really good defense against them. And it was an away game versus a home game. And IU came out tonight shooting like they were in shoot around the first half. I mean, but it felt like everything they put up was going in. They're a much better three-point shooting team this year than last year, but it still felt like way, way over their average, obviously, in that first half. And I realize our rotations on some of that stuff and leaving them that wide open probably played into that. But I just think we ran into a buzzsaw on a rivalry game. I mean, like we said, the last show, you never know what's going to happen in a rivalry game, and IU just came out like locked into a level that's not going to happen most times.
Yeah, absolutely. Ryan, can you hear us? He has tried as hard as he can.
Yeah,
I told him
to a certain extent. Yes, I can.
Okay. Well, we'll work through this and we'll be quick with you. Appreciate the effort of trying to come on today after the tough loss, at Assembly Hall. What was it like to be there, and what were some of your observations in the game? He's trying. I gotta give him credit. I know it's not great for everybody being patient with the show. We're talking about a legend for the Purdue Boilermakers, March Madness legend, and a guy that certainly knew everything about this rivalry. So I got to give him credit for the effort, because most guys would have given up by now, and he is not giving up. So Ryan Klein, shout out to you. I'll give him a call here in a little bit.
Can he find Wi-Fi somewhere?
Well, I keep asking him to, and he said he was going to wait like 15 minutes, and then he came back in 5. So he's obviously geared up to give his take on what happened in this game. Like he's already jumping back in right now, and we're going through it with him going to the dance. I might just have to call him and let him give his take this way, because this is just turning into a shit show. So, Joe, what are your thoughts? Because you're certainly somebody that follows we all follow the Big Ten closely, but you guys are certainly locked into this as much as anybody. What are your observations? How legit IU is as of late?
I mean, yeah, no, they've turned it around. It's kind of interesting that the IU is playing the way that they are. Oh, can you hear us?
We got a live feed. Go to him, Greg, right now.
Yeah, just
Ryan, last chance. Can you hear us?
Fellas. I'm trying my best.
No, you're good. You're good. We appreciate you. We're having fun with it. Ryan, what were your observations being in Assembly Hall? What was the atmosphere like, and how did you feel the team performed, even coming back down 16?
Yeah, I mean, it was obviously rocking in Assembly. I mean, them being the number one team in the country, it's tough not to get up for that game, and obviously IU did, and they hit some shots early on. Man, I didn't see them. I don't know if they missed the shot early on, and it's tough coming in as the number one seed and playing anybody, especially your rival, but. I mean, man, they were making everything, and we just got off to a slow start, and I think that's kind of what bit us in the butt here later on in the game. It's something that you gotta come out firing, and I guess we didn't do that, but we played a great game, and it was tough because we obviously got their best shot, because man, they were making everything early on, and Hochefino had a great game. He's making a bunch of pull up 15-footers, and I mean, I cannot believe I looked over at my brother. I mean, Zach Edey had 33 points. I couldn't believe that he had 33 points. I mean, you never notice somebody has that many points. It's just like, man, he makes
it look easy, doesn't he?
He makes it look so easy, and we just got off to a slow start, and I think that's kind of what got us, there at the end of the game. Some people will say, we didn't execute, later on in the game. No, I think it's us getting down 14, getting down 15 points. I mean, that's how it goes.
Yep.
If you get down that much, it's tough to come back.
There were Purdue had 11 turnovers of their 16 in the first half. They missed more than a handful of free throws. And then you combine that with IU shooting 65% from the field in the first half. That was certainly, just an explosion. And that's something I've noticed going to Assembly Hall the last few years is that first half in particular. It's a raucous crowd, but that first half every year is insane. And it seems like Purdue always has to find their bearings under those circumstances. Take us into the halftime locker room. You've been there before under Matt Painter. When you have a half like that, in a hostile environment, what do you think Matt Painter was like with those guys? I think the assumption is he was going crazy, but you're the type that would, or having been in those locker rooms, you'd know better than anybody. What do you think the message was from Matt Painter to his group going into the half?
I mean, I think the overall message was, just keep sticking to what we're doing. I mean, we were executing, and we were doing everything that we needed to do. It's just we weren't making shots, and that's kind of how it works sometimes. You can't always you can't always make the open shots that Miller Kopp and Trey Galloway were hitting early on. It's just it is what it is, but you got to keep going back to your roots. You got to get it to Zach Edey. Zach Edey's, if he gets doubled, sweet. Let's make some plays. Let's hit some shots. And we got to get stops. I mean, having IU score 50 points in the first half. I mean, that's I don't want to knock on our guys because they were playing hard, but that's kind of, it's not unacceptable, but it's something that is obviously a big point when it comes to the half. I mean, we kind of have our anchor, and our anchor is playing great defense. And
right.
we're not playing great defense if the team's scoring 50 points in the first half. It is what it is, but man, they were hitting everything that was given to them, and credit to IU. I mean, they were capitalizing on their opportunities when they had them.
Yeah, they gave
defensively.
up.
Defensively, how much do you think that was of, like Morton got in foul trouble real quick and was off the floor, and he's kind of our perimeter defensive anchor, and then Zach having to go to the bench and TKR having to come in terms of post.
I totally agree. I think that was big that Zach had to go to the bench. I think it was big that Morton had to go to the bench. You could not, no knock on Trace Jackson Davis. I mean, the guy's a stud. He's an absolute stud. You cannot let him go left. You cannot let him get to his left hand. If he gets to his left hand, stuff's going to happen, and he's either going to score or he's going to find somebody. Just do not let him go left. I mean, the guy, he struggles going over his left shoulder and his right hand. You got to stay on his right shoulder. You stay on his right shoulder. It's tough for him to make stuff happen. But I mean, again, it's all the credit to IU. I mean, they made stuff happen when we made mistakes, and it is what it is. I mean, they were making threes. Miller Kopp was hitting corner threes. I mean, Chafino was hitting pull-ups off down screens. It is. You got to give all the credit to them. I mean, they came out. They were ready to play. And we weren't early on, and we came out in the second half. We were ready to go, but I mean, it was
so Ryan, I definitely want to bring you on here going forward for a actual sit down interview where you're not driving home, but we appreciate you coming in here and giving us your thoughts as you're leaving Assembly Hall. We were certainly hoping it was going to be in a winning fashion. So, says a lot about how you are to give as much effort to come on here and talk about this, despite it being a tough loss. And I know you took your brother to the game as a gift to him. So you're a good man, Ryan. And, I'm going to let you rock and roll and drive safe. And maybe we'll bring you on here before the season ends, or maybe after Purdue wraps up a Big Ten regular season championship, and we can talk some more.
Sorry, I'm not.
and that is Ryan Klein. We got about as much as we could from Ryan there, and I think that was really good stuff. So I'm glad we at least got that from him. So he's trying to jump back on. I love Ryan Klein. For the record,
just shoot him a text and let
for the record, I love me some Ryan Klein.
I mean, obviously, Bloomington. Hey, I don't know if you guys can hear me, but obviously, Bloomington doesn't put enough money in their Wi-Fi as opposed to they do for the NIL. It is what it is. We're finally hitting the straight road. We're ready to go.
Okay. I was just giving you the Midwestern goodbye and telling you thank you for coming on. It says a lot that you put as much effort as you did to come on and give your thoughts despite it being a loss. And we certainly would love to bring you back before the season ends and talk more officially when you're sitting at your house comfortable in your office.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. I appreciate you guys having me, and I would love to talk more Purdue hoops. Obviously, it's a tough loss, but we're going to learn from it. We're young. We're ready to grow as a team, I think. And we just I think kind of the thing that we got to take from that game is you can't get off to slow starts in the Big Ten. I mean, it's such a tough conference, and when you get off to those slow starts and you dig yourself that hole, it's tough to get out of it. So you got to come out, you got to be fired up, and you got to be ready to match whatever punches that the other team gives you, especially as the number one team in the country.
Absolutely. And I think it was a good test for these guys. They've had plenty of good ones, but sometimes you learn more from a loss than you do a win. And I know some people will say, they don't like to hear that, make them want to throw up or something more than they already have today, but that can hold true. So hopefully they take this loss and learn from it and use it for something better down the road. Ryan, we'll catch up with you here real soon. Maybe in a few weeks we can bring you on in more official terms. Like I said, when you're comfy in your office.
Absolutely. Sorry for the really bad Bloomington connection. You know, it is what it is. They just, you know, they're paying their players, and they're not worried about the connection for us guys who are trying to talk hoops. It is what it is.
No apologies from you at all. We'll certainly blame it on Bloomington. Get back to civilization, get out of that hellhole, and have fun.
Please.
Drive safe,
Thank
my
God.
friend.
Thank God. All right.
All right. That
All
is
right, guys.
Ryan.
See you, Ryan.
Boiler up.
Boiler up. That is
Boiler
Ryan
up.
Klein, doing his best to come here on Boilers in the Stands. And, you know, he was in the stands today. So that was nice of him to jump on. You know, like I said, we were hoping it'd be in a celebratory manner. So I'm sure it's a little more frustrating, you know, as the viewers are tuned in and we're sulking over this loss. So let's get back into it. You know, let's get this thing back on the tracks. The train fell off there for a minute, but we appreciate Ryan and certainly his perspective of everything. And, you know, that was a lot of fun. You know, so again, why don't you guys, a quick reminder to, you know, like and subscribe to the show as always. If you're watching this right now, you're enjoying what we're doing, and please hit the like button, subscribe to us. You know, I've been seeing some of the metrics saying that got a lot of viewers that are tuned in that aren't subscribers. Come on now, join the party. Subscribe. Doesn't cost a thing if you subscribe on YouTube, and you'll be notified quicker for when we're going live and doing these post-game shows and some of our weekly interviews. And we're also now available on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. So please give us a review, leave some stars in there for us, preferably 5 stars. If you got 1 star, don't leave a review. Just move on. Go watch your IU podcast. But we appreciate everyone joining us today. But we're going to move on to our next segment of this show, and go into a deeper dive into some of the individual, you know, performances. But I did want to give a shout out to Indiana Sports Coverage, because they're going to be providing us with some of the pictures that we may use here throughout this segment. So if you're not already following Indiana Sports Coverage, and specifically for you Purdue fans, Indiana Sports Coverage for Purdue at ISC_Purdue on Twitter, you absolutely should be. They do incredible work. These are some of the pictures that are provided from them, and we'll be, you know, continuing to pull them up as we talk about some of the individual efforts here today. There's Braden Smith going up for a layup, and Zach Edey with the throwdown. Look at this picture. This is incredible stuff here. This is some of the stuff that Indiana Sports Coverage provides. They do fantastic work. We see them all the time at Mackey Arena. There's Fletcher Lawyer trying to take it in, play through that contact as he has all year. And Zach Edey was just absolutely dominant today once again. And, you know, I think that's where we should start. I know we've talked a little bit about Zach already, but I said it on Twitter, you know, and this big matchup between Trayce Jackson-Davis and Zach Edey lived up to the billing. Maybe if Trayce Jackson-Davis had played more consistently early in the year, he'd be closer in this race for National Player of the Year. But as great as Trayce Jackson-Davis played today, and he certainly did play great, Zach Edey basically cemented that he is the far and away front runner for National Player of the Year. As Ryan Klein said, he had 33 points on the day. And maybe if you were tuned in, you realize that. But for the most part, in a lot of ways, I don't want to say it's a quiet 33 because he's certainly dominant. So that would probably be selling short his impact on the game. But just the way he, you know, is just so consistent and how he goes up, and he doesn't, you know, Trayce Jackson-Davis will throw it down and he'll let everybody in the stadium know. Zach's not that type in a lot of ways. So maybe he plays with a quiet confidence at times. And I think that might be the quietness to the 33 that we're talking about. Craig, talk about the day that Zach Edey had trying to do everything he could to keep Purdue in it.
Well, I don't know if he can have a quiet 33 point, 18 rebound day.
Right.
And he literally missed 4 shots. He was 15 and 19. Like, if we were watching Fletcher Lawyer shoot 19 shots from the perimeter and hit 15 out of 19, like Kevin Durant would be retweeting the dude. Like he would be trending, you know? I mean, that's insane in terms of what he did from that standpoint. The 5 turnovers weren't great, but like everything else about what he did today was awesome. And had this come in a win, had that performance come with a win, had other guys hit free throws, had other guys not turn their ball over from the guard spot, yada, yada, had we shot normal from 3, we got the win. That moment when Trace Jackson Davis tried to challenge him at the rim and TD didn't even, like, literally didn't even get within 3 feet of the rim. Like he went up and tried to like sky jam it over him, and Zach just met
Tried to
him
climb a
3
ladder
feet
on him.
from the rim and just stopped him cold, and no foul call, just like missed, threw it at the backboard at that point. That image would have gone viral of Zach doing that. Unfortunately, because it came in a loss, that's going to get lost. But like,
and the second time
that was the moment of Zach is clearly the dominant player over TJD.
And the second one, you could argue when Trace Jackson Davis tries to posterize Zach Edey, you know, you could have, as Sean is saying here, could have been called an offensive foul with his the off ball hand. He was arm barring right into Zach.
Well, we're talking about the same play. We're talking about the same play.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And so, they don't call it. And then Mason Gillis gets, picked up with the foul on Race Thompson. They get sent to the line.
Yeah, and boy, there were a couple. You wish they would have called something on Jackson Davis on that one earlier in the game when Edey got his third. I mean, that was a total flop by Jackson Davis. I thought that Scarrato, of course, just fell for. He loves falling for that stuff inside. And then the other one was the Gillis when he bumped chest with Gillis. That you could go either way, but yeah, I did feel like there were some times where he could have gotten a call. I want to kind of shift the conversation towards the freshman guards for Purdue, because I thought that was kind of the story of the game. I'd be interested to hear your guys' thoughts on that, because, it felt like Braden Smith, like he had 6 assists and throughout the game, it felt like one of their more consistent ways of generating offense was just a high ball screen with Braden and Zach. And, IU was doing such a good job pushing Purdue out to the half court line, making it difficult for Purdue to run their sets. But they were physical with Braden and Fletch. And, all year you've thought, wow, the team could be really physical and more athletic than these guys. It could cause them a little bit of trouble. Miller Kopp in particular was really good staying with Lawyer through a lot of the screening action, the off ball action with Purdue. And I think if those guys had, there were a couple threes by Lawyer that were really big spots in the game that were in rhythm, wide open, and just didn't fall. I think if those guys played up to what we've seen in the past, this would have been a Purdue win, and maybe even a comfortable Purdue win.
Yeah. You got to say, to me, Braden Smith and Fletcher Lawyer played hesitant for the majority of the game. I think the one Fletcher Lawyer 3 that he hit in the first half was the one where he didn't hesitate, let it rip. He had a couple where he didn't hesitate and it didn't go down. But for the most part, there were a lot of shots not taken by Fletcher Lawyer and Braden Smith at times. There were times where Braden was given the pick and roll and could have been more aggressive going to the hoop, and you could tell he was trying to set Zach Edey up for the lob, and it wasn't there. There were times where Braden could have put a 3 up just by how they were playing under the screen, and he didn't take it. He's unselfish by nature, wants to find his teammates, but there were too many times, and it wasn't just those two, pretty much across the board. There were just too many times where they probably should have put it up. Now, this is a team that has, been so unselfish all season long, and that's been to their benefit in a lot of games. But today, the way the ball pressure was from, Trey Galloway and Jalen Hood-Schifino, all of them. I mean, every single player for IU was playing right up in them all game long. Irritating the pass, to make it tough on them. They weren't getting any clean passes. You basically have to reset up every time a pass went around the horn. Very rarely did they have a clean possession. So you just got to credit IU for that in a lot of ways. But you're 100% right, Lynn. Braden showed some freshman nerves, and there were times where I thought Fletcher could have pulled the trigger too. So a learning experience, but if they had won, I think we still would have been saying that even if they had pulled out a win at the very end. So,
Definitely.
if they had won, that would have been the definition of stealing one. So,
Yeah.
I don't know if our rhetoric would have changed whether they won or lost this game. What do you think, Joe?
Yeah, no, I think that's ultimately where the game was had. I use guards just in general. They played better. Especially in that first half, Smith was, as you guys said, Smith was just a little too hesitant. And I know, Trace is a really, really elite rim protector. And so, Smith's 6 foot with shoes. So I get that there's the size difference, but would have liked to see him be a little bit more aggressive. Lawyer was at least, he was willing to take shots. Smith was too in the second half. Smith ended up with 8 shots. It's not like he didn't put him up. But I think there was times that he could have pretty easily. I thought this was one of Lawyer's worst defensive games. And I think that hurts a lot. And part of it is the rotations, right? Like IU did a good job, especially in that first half, of just putting Purdue in rotation. And so, I'll watch, when I watch it back, maybe I'll be like, Lawyer's guy scored because Lawyer had to go help here. So, I'm going to give myself the caveat there. But I thought, he was pretty poor defensively, which hurts. That's why you saw a little bit more Jenkins at times. But then, just I use that was, I think you were kind of saying this before we were able to get Ryan on. Like, I watched most of IU's games, pretty much, all their Big Ten games, at least for sure. This was the best I've seen their perimeter guards play all year, period, on that first half. Defensively, by far, just pressuring. Wasn't if it was a ticky-tack game, maybe they get called for fouls, but it wasn't. And so I'm not saying they should have been, but defensively, just getting into Smith and Lawyer. And just as you said, just now a possession of Purdue's so timing based on all of their sets and stuff. Like if you can take them out of that timing, now it becomes, okay, we got to just run high pick and roll. Smith had some success with it, getting it to Edey, but that was where I just really think that's where the game was. Hood-Schifino knocked down mid-range jumpers and Lawyer and Smith couldn't knock down theirs. And then the defense wasn't great.
Yeah, or not even take them. Even, Joe.
True.
Like Braden had a bunch that I think he's going to look back and go, yeah, I probably should have pulled the trigger there, to your point, Braggs.
Yeah.
And he needs to just get more
even
confident.
Lawyer did.
Yeah.
Fletcher had a 3 or 4,
Yep.
like where he usually only needs a sliver. And he had that moment 3 or 4 times and kind of went like he was going to take it and then changed his mind. And I was
Just didn't.
Whoa, what's you take that normally.
Unusual.
Yeah.
And, and sometimes, like I said, the unselfishness that they've played with is what's made them so great. But in a game like today where IU was recovering so well and closing so well, when you did have those few open moments, even if they're for a second or two, you got to grip it and rip it and show that confidence. And I think Lawyer does have that confidence to grip it and rip it in the clutch moments, maybe even a little more than Smith. I think Smith is more comfortable taking it to the rim in the clutch moments, but I don't think Braden Smith is at the point yet where he has the confidence to grip it and rip it from 3 in the clutch. And that's going to take some time, but he needs to start taking some of those shots so he has that confidence when it gets down to the wire like that and believe in himself. So, because Braden's always going to be the guy that, wants to get his teammates the ball, but there are going to be times where Braden needs to be the one to take the shot too.
Yeah.
Jeremy, my Tumblr is burgundy, not red, not even close to crimson. So you need to lay off of that.
Let's see it, Craig.
Yeah, come on.
This is burgundy.
Whoa,
in the camera, that looks.
Whoa! What? Bring it back up. Let's see this again. I mean,
That's
what's
in the
going on
family,
Again,
here,
for sure.
for Christ's sake.
Come on, dude.
Jeez.
That's close.
Boo.
It's what was clean, man. It's what was clean. I'm sorry.
Oh no!
man.
That's
Hey.
why we lost. This is why we
That's-
lost,
yeah,
guys.
Clearly, that's why we lost.
This is
Clearly.
a good catch by Jeremy. Michael's backing you up. He's saying they're Gopher colors, but I don't
Go
know.
for colors.
Yeah, it's Gopher colors, not IU colors. But
That was,
No,
that was a Gopher move right there. Of course, I got all the pretty. I'm so glad I'm doing this.
Does anybody?
Go ahead. I'm just saying I got so
I need to
many
know-
messages from IU fans right now. It's not even funny. I can't deal with these people.
Yeah. So the one thing I would say, and we have touted like Painter making the right call in so many games this year. And like obviously we're all only one of us here is a coach. Aiden can raise his hand as a coach. Okay. Nobody else can. But like, freshman basketball or whatever it is not D1 either. So none of us are trying to tell Matt Painter what to do, clearly. But just watching that game and in that kind of environment, I kind of wondered sometimes, like Jenkins came in and hit 2 or 3 from 3. And he had a couple of turnovers, but there was a piece of me that was like, man, like Jenkins looks like he has that dog in him where if he makes a mistake, he's going to come back and make them pay for it too. Type of like he didn't, I don't know. He just, he looked steady, felt steady. I don't know if we might have benefited from having Jenkins in there a little bit more today, especially right alongside Braden with 2 ball handlers.
Yeah, I don't hate that at all. I would have liked to see that as well. I wonder if, sometimes as a coach, you get a guy makes a dumb play and it just sticks in the back of your mind for the rest of the game. And I wonder if that at the end of the first half, where he
had that one
ball
terrible pass. Yeah.
And Renew got it and made it 15. And I wonder if Payne in the back of Payne's mind is like, no, I can't get over that. I'm just so pissed because that was a big play. I mean, if it was 13, at the half, it would have been a lot more manageable to come back from. Not that, and Purdue came back regardless, but I would have liked to see that too. I thought Jenkins gave great energy. What did Newman play? 15. Jenkins played 17. So, you could have maybe given him some of those minutes. Lawyer 31's a lot. Even when we made that run, Jenkins was the guy in there instead of Lawyer, actually.
Yeah,
and then
this
Lawyer
was the
came in late.
rundown. 37 minutes from Braden Smith leading the way.
Wow.
32 minutes from Zach Edey. 31 from Fletcher Lawyer. 24 for Caleb First, and then from the starting lineup, 21 from Ethan Morton. And then off the bench, leading the way, David Jenkins Jr. at 17 minutes, 15 minutes for Brandon Newman and Mason Gillis, and 10 minutes from Trey Kaufman-Renn. So interesting to see those splits. 37 minutes from Braden Smith.
Yeah. And I'm not going to blame Painter for that because
no.
I think it was basically, do I leave Fletcher in? Do I give Fletcher minutes or do I bring Jenkins in at the 2 spot? I don't think they were going to take Braden out because Braden made some mistakes, but we're not even in that game without Braden. Like Braden manipulated the defense numerous times on high ball screen, pick and roll action. So it's a matter of Jenkins or Lawyer, and Lawyer is showing time after time that even when he's not had good games, he's come through in the clutch late in the second half multiple times.
He scored again. He scored again in the clutch, and so did Braden with that floater. Those guys still made a couple plays there in the second half. I think in the first half, Craig, like we've talked about, sometimes, the best offense is just Braden, Edey, pick and roll and get out of the way. And boy, they were getting so pushed so far back. I'd love to see the numbers on this, but I do think this must have been one of Purdue's highest ball screen percentage games. Don't you think, Joe? Just because they sort of decided, okay, that's our best option here. And we're going to do a couple different things to get into ball screen action. But that's ultimately going to be the focus of the game plan because IU was just like, no, you're not going to do your dribble weave. We're going to blow that up. You're not going to do your normal sets with a lot of false movement because they'll come after you. And like you said, like Joe, I don't think they're really going to call a hand check. Not that they should. It's a rivalry game. But, that's what it was last year when Johnson and Finney and Galloway really got frustrated Ivy. And again, this year, those guys really pushed us out and were physical with us. And same thing Rutgers did,
that's why it's a good test for these guys because that's what they're going to run into in the NCAA tournament. Maybe not every game in the tournament, but you're going to run into one. And they ran into that with St. Peter's last year. Matt Painter.
Yeah, dogs. Bunch of dogs. Just relentless defense, and where the refs.
But because the other point too is not only were they playing aggressive defense, but the refs were allowing a lot in that game.
Yeah.
And that's stuff you got to play through the hand checks. You got to play through when they're pulling on you when you're trying to run through a screen because that was happening a lot today. that's the stuff you're going to have to overcome. And today, more than ever, did I see players, because when a team is shaken, the one thing I always see with young players is they turn to the coach and start crying. You know, like I saw it a lot last year where they'd be pleading with Painter, like, this is so unfair. Why is this happening to me? Kind of thing. And you'd always see Painter, like one time First today was complaining at Painter and he put his hand up like, enough, you know, you just didn't do good enough there. And that's a great test for them today, because when you get to the tournament, it ain't no woe is me. You just got to fight like hell to overcome it. Now, Craig,
I get that. I get that. But we were also, this is not a neutral game. We were at IU in the second most intimidating environment in the Big Ten. And you heard me right when I say second most intimidating environment in the Big Ten.
Hell yeah.
In the Hall of Calls. Like they're not going to face that environment in a neutral court situation in the tournament.
Well,
So
I would
to
push
me
back on
that's
I mean,
beyond
I would-
beyond that.
Assembly call is certainly a hornet's nest, and it is like, yes, I believe on a consistent game-to-game basis, Mackey is better than Assembly Hall. They don't bring that energy every game, and they should. If they did, they'd probably be much better at home than they normally. If they'd take every game, like I said earlier, and play it the way they play Purdue at home, they'd win a lot more games. And I do believe Mackey Arena brings that energy on a more consistent basis, no matter who they're playing, even non-conference early season games. But when Purdue plays at Assembly Hall, it's as good as Mackey ever is. And sometimes you could argue it's even louder. I've been there. I've heard it. It is. I don't want to I'm trying to be unbiased in this. I'm just telling you.
I think 50 people just unsubscribe from
and
us.
I get it. People want to, discredit them because we hate them. But it is a madhouse there. It is a madhouse just as much as any moment for Mackey Arena. So you can sell them short all you want as rivals, but it is a fact, and you can just see it the way the players are affected. These guys haven't been affected like this all season. The other thing I would push back on you about that, Craig, is the St. Peter's game. You say it won't happen on a neutral court, but that St. Peter's game, that entire stadium was against Purdue. They all wanted to see the Cinderella story take them down, and it was just as unnerving as any game, any environment they played in all year, because it was so crazy to watch this team with this guy with the trash stash and these young little centers outplaying the great Travion Williams and Zach Edey. And it was a madhouse to a point where Purdue completely unraveled from it. Jaden Ivey unraveled. So it can happen on a neutral court depending on the circumstances of your matchup.
Well,
Hey,
you're
guys,
right. And I was not there because I tested positive for COVID after
you were
ISC
responsible.
gave me the credentials.
Yeah, you
and
had
I
a
had to
credential
stay
to
home.
go, and the same day you got the credential, you get COVID, and you were responsible.
But after we saw the result, I wasn't that upset about it. So
Yeah,
I was
true.
the one regretting it on the flight home. Go ahead, Aiden.
Well, and guys, I was just gonna say, why do you think seeding's important? Because this year it could be Louisville instead of Philadelphia, in those big games. So
right, because
that's
it
why
was kind of in their backyard for St.
Yeah,
Peter's,
no, it was.
which was a happenstance thing. It's not like anybody realized St. Peter's was going to be there. But you're right, Purdue could have been playing much closer to home where they had a larger Purdue contingent.
Yeah.
So, to your point and Craig's about seeding implications, if they can hold this one seed, they're going to play much closer to home where the environment will be more Purdue friendly.
Well, and let's maybe talk about that a second,
Yeah.
stats guy Joe. Is there any chance?
Stats guy
Me,
Joe.
even though we lost IU on the road, we lost to a ranked team by 5 points. Tennessee's lost. A lot of the other top 5 teams have lost. I don't even consider Houston a top 10 team. Is there any I don't think we lose the number 1 ranking come Monday. I really don't. I think we'll still be number
who is
1.
2 right now? Tennessee,
but they lost today, and
Tennessee
a
won.
much worse. What?
Didn't Tennessee win?
I don't think.
Yeah, they won. They beat
I
Auburn.
thought-
They beat Auburn.
beat
It was
Auburn.
the final score was 6-5.
Well,
6-5.
whatever.
It wasn't
49-46. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Well,
Tennessee
they have
won.
one. They
Yeah,
have one more
Tennessee
loss
won.
than us. Either
Right.
way,
Tennessee lost 46-43. They're 19-4 on the season.
even if we lose the number one ranking, I think like all bracket matrices and everything else will still have us as a number one and likely the number one overall seed even after this loss.
Yes.
Yeah, no, I agree. I don't think I think it was a pretty sizable gap, and it's you're losing to a top.
Oh, Michael said Tennessee lost earlier in the week and then almost lost the second time.
Yeah, but yeah, no, I think they're still number one. And you got like the number one seeds are generally Houston, Tennessee, us, and I forget who's the
Bama.
fourth. Bama.
Bama.
So yeah, because you got to think about
Which
that
is-
too, right? So they're going to try to seed. So there's no West Coast team out of that group, which makes it a little tough. Because like
Yeah,
if
I
it
mean,
was like
Zona could get there.
yeah, so if they get there, they're going to take the West, and then that kind of clears up one spot too. But I think Purdue still should be still in that top seed, if not top two, and then you're just hoping that that they can get the South. I guess it's weird that we want the South, right? Because that's technically like the Columbus to Louisville route, right?
Yes. Yes. That would
Which-
be Columbus first weekend, Louisville second weekend.
Yeah, so that's the one we want. But I don't see any reason why we would drop off of that right now.
And on the closer scale of what we're focusing on, around the Big Ten here today, Illinois falls to Iowa on the road. The Orange Crush crew tried to invade Carver Arena in Iowa City, and Iowa denied them not only their fans in the stands, but they denied them the victory, and Iowa wins in a close one, 80-78. And then Rutgers take down Michigan State on a neutral court, not so neutral, in Madison Square Garden, where there was a large, obviously, Rutgers Scarlet Knight contingent. So it was an impressive win by the Rutgers earlier on in the day. But with Illinois falling to Iowa, that leaves the Rutgers as the only 4-loss team in the Big Ten as far as Big Ten conference play is concerned. Purdue at what now 12-2 in the Big Ten.
Yep.
11-2. Right?
11-2 in the Big Ten.
Yeah, 11-2. Sorry.
And Rutgers with what? Help me out here, guys. They got 4 losses.
They have 8 wins and 4
Why
losses.
do you always say? Why do you always say the Rutgers?
I know
confused by that.
Rutgers, whatever the fuck. 8-4 in the Big Ten.
It's like it's
correct?
not the.
I don't
It's
get-
like
get your-
it's the Ohio State.
your-
Like
Drink your maroon tumbler and be quiet. Rutgers are 8-4 and Purdue is 11-2. Yeah, with Craig rocking the enemy colors here today. And
maroon, not crimson. Damn it.
Crimson, maroon. We're gonna maroon you off this show in a second. He's like, please don't do me any favors. No, so Purdue's still with a 2-game lead. I mean, obviously, if they ended up with the same record, what Rutgers hold the tiebreaker because they
There's
beat
no
us.
tiebreakers.
There's no tiebreakers. So thank you for
Yeah,
saving me
they
there.
would share.
Share the Big Ten title. But still, only 7 games to go and a 2-game lead. They're ahead 2, losses in the loss column on Rutgers. Rutgers travel to Indiana on Tuesday. That's obviously a heated rivalry. If you remember last year, there was like a fight at the end of the game and some bitter blood between the two, bad blood, I should say, between the two teams. So it'll be interesting to see how that game unfolds. I think that's a win-win for Purdue fans either way. If Rutgers lose, fine, separates them because Purdue doesn't play now till Thursday. They get a few days to kind of clear their head after this crazy loss and this run they've been on here lately since having a 10 or 11 game winning streak since they lost to Rutgers. It'll be interesting to see how things unfold the rest of the way, but Purdue is still in a very good spot, as we were talking about, just in the big picture for a 1 seed and to win a Big Ten championship and continue to add on to the most Big Ten championships of any team in the Big Ten for regular season championships. So there's still a lot, a lot of goals for Purdue to accomplish. Today certainly was one they took on the chin. Nobody likes to lose to their rivals. Shara says maroon. That's a technical. So, but we appreciate everybody tuning in. Once again, I want everybody to hit that like button. I've been begging you. I know it hurts here today, but we still hopped on here. Win or lose, we're always going to be here for you guys. So please hit that like button, subscribe. Go ahead, Craig, while I'm going on my rant.
No, I was just going to say, I was going to bring up this comment. And
go ahead.
Like people bring this up all the time. And Purdue is always going to double the post. That's what they do. Painter has said it 1,000 times. Whether you like it or not, that's what Painter does. They're going to double the post 95% of the time. And we even saw, even when Pickett or Sensabaugh was backing a guard down, they would double them in the post. That's just how Purdue defense runs. And when it works and everybody's on their rotation, it looks beautiful. When somebody's slow on their rotation, it doesn't work out. But Purdue's always going to double post. We can all bring it up about whether it should happen or shouldn't happen, but like Painter is locked in and sold on that. If Joe or Aiden want to contest that,
Aiden, your
that's
observations.
Painter's thing.
No, I don't want to contest it. I want to agree. I think what I want to contest about that is just that we didn't have the requisite intensity or energy on our doubles and our rotations in the first half.
Right.
Trace was able to step through. He hit a sweet pass to Kopp. One of them was just a sweet pass that you can't do anything about. But a lot of times, it just wasn't good enough. I mean, how many times did he just go right through a double, in that first half? And you got to be more physical. You got to be stronger. When Edey went out in that first half and Coffin entered, Trace smelled blood, man. He went right at him, and it didn't matter if there was a double or not. They weren't strong enough to handle him. He just beat the double. And sometimes as a coach, you make a decision and it's not necessarily the wrong decision. It just didn't work. And that just didn't work today because the players weren't able to execute it at a high level. They didn't have the level of focus, I didn't think, on the double, especially in the first half, that they needed to for a player like Trace. It'd be one thing if it was, whoever. I mean, Rebraca, we're going to see on Thursday or somebody. Other players wouldn't have been able to take as much of an advantage as Trace did. But tonight, you had to be sharp to handle a Trace, and they didn't. And the other thing with Trace is they got out and ran, and Purdue's not been a great transition defensive team all year. That was a point of emphasis in the first half. They threw it ahead. They got a couple live ball turnovers, 11 steals, guys. I mean, for IU, tell our guys all the time, if you're going to turn it over, punt it into the stands, because at least we can set our defense. But if you're giving it right to the other team, if they're going to steal it, then they're going right the other way. And Trace got out, got loose, got some dunks, and it's just kind of what it was in that first half. So I think if they had better intensity and focus, it might have been a different story.
Yeah, and I think because I think the doubles were okay at times. A couple times in the first half, Trace did really good. He just backed out to the 3-point line and then just took somebody off the dribble, and he scored two.
Yeah, good call. And we
two
left.
or three buckets off that and a kick out. It's not single coverage. It's like when teams single cover Edey. IU did it today, and Edey had 33. I think Aiden's spot on with the intensity wasn't there with it at times, because Trace, like I said, Trace backed out to the 3-point line a couple times and just absolutely took guys off the dribble.
Kaufman especially.
Yeah, now you're rotating. Edey has to come over the help side. Now your defense on the backside is all rotating, and Trace is arguably he's probably the best post passer in the league right now, or at least one of the top ones. So
outside of Pickett.
I want to push back.
Yeah.
I want to push back on the intensity thing. I think sometimes people come out too hype and too intense. And I thought, just watching that they were making the wrong decision a lot of times, because they were so hype and so intense to be at Bloomington, that they were not making the simple rotation that they normally would, and were trying to do the extra thing to get the steal or close out or whatever. And it was just be in your lane. Just know what your lane is, know where you're supposed to be, and get there. Be in your position. So
Yeah.
I don't know if it was lack of intensity or just the environment getting to them and just not making the simple play defensively or offensively, either one.
Yeah, that's fair. It did feel like they got sped up. It did feel like they got sped up, and I don't know, like, what's the rule on, to Joe's point, like, I don't know what the rule is when Trace backs it out like that. Do you want to stay, you want to keep a guy there at the nail to help down and you just leave the far shooter? But
Explain the nail.
The nail's just
I
the middle
saw
of the
that in
free
a
throw
tweet
line.
earlier. I was like, what's the nail? Somebody was saying stay
Just
at the
the
nail,
middle.
and I'm like, what's the nail?
Yeah, just the middle of the free throw line.
Yeah, just like
circle that,
anywhere
Joe.
in this area. So like
There is a little
Trace would be like here and he'd come back out. And so sometimes you have a guy come over and just kind of help in
So
this
it's
area.
literally because that part like above the free throw line looks like a thumbnail. That's why they call it a nail.
No, there's a little nail there's a little nail in the middle of the free throw line to line your feet up with, right?
Yep.
That goes directly towards the rim. It's the middle of the
right
cuts
in
the
that
floor in
center of the
half.
free throw line.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's a
I'm-
popular place to have your help.
And I think, one thing IU did, we've did well, and we've said it kind of all year. I know me and you, Aiden, for sure. I don't know if we've said it specifically on this show. IU in general hasn't had too complex of an offense, but I thought they positioned guys really, really well today on like the weak side. So like when Trace backs out, that nail help, or if Edey comes over to help, the low man was always like Lawyer or Smith. It was never Morton or Newman or another big guy. It was always one of those small guards. And so now IU has Renew, or they have Race Thompson, who's obviously he's not really a post threat per se, but they have one of those guys on Smith, Lawyer, and like that's just that's just a size advantage that they can't handle. They're in the right spot, honestly, a decent amount of the times. They just can't, they're not big enough, and then that's an issue. I think IU did well though, or at least in the first half. Second half, they only scored 29 points. Trace only took 7 shots. He went 3 of 7. It was Hutchfino just hit a bunch of pull-ups, really. But that first half, especially, thought they just positioned really well, had some of the best spacing. Purdue couldn't get around screens well either, to be honest. Like, especially even that second half, man. Purdue loves their Chicago action. IU went to it sometimes, or just a simple pin down.
Yeah.
Purdue just couldn't get through the screens, and so now Hutchfino's getting. Usually you want Purdue's done pretty well of forcing at least semi-contested mid-range shots, and Hutchfino got whatever he got any look.
Whatever he wanted.
Today. Yeah.
No, whatever he wanted, and you almost wonder if they should have made an adjustment there. But again, Painter is very much of the mind of, we've got our rules, we're going to stick to them. And they're told to try and tight trail those guys on that Chicago action. Trail them and try to fight over the top of those screens. And if you're not successful doing that, or if you're a step slow. Yeah, Chicago, Michael, we talked a little bit about that.
No, he's making a joke about the company CHGO action all day long.
We might need to rename that.
I'm glad you're paying attention.
In honor of Braggs.
CHGO all day long. Go ahead. No, I was laughing.
Yeah.
I'm reading this this stuff, and I knew I put out a couple things about storming the court, and I knew it would draw some attention from the IU Twitters, and I said, the Blue Bloods don't rush the court ever, and somebody said, but a Bobby Knight chair would. And I'm getting some pushback, and I'll have fun with it. At the end of the day, you just gotta. I mean, certainly in the regular season, losses suck. March Madness losses certainly wear on you and hard to shake, but I can get over a regular season loss pretty quickly, especially with a team as good as this. Especially the way they fought back.
For sure.
Especially the way they fought back. If they had lost by 20, took it on the chin like that, that might have left a bad taste in your mouth. But this game honestly reminded me a lot of the Michigan State game in a lot of ways. I know we probably didn't turn the ball over as much. I mean, to only turn it over 16 times almost feels low with the amount of times it felt like they turned it over. But as the reason I compare it to the Michigan State game at Michigan State was they were on fire, man, just like Michigan State was, could not miss. I agree with somebody that said in the chat earlier, when it comes back to Mackey Arena, it wouldn't surprise me at all to see Purdue blow the doors off this team because, at the end of the day, they barely beat Purdue and they played their best game of the season by a lot. When they lost to Arizona, I thought they actually played pretty good in that game, and Arizona took it to them because Arizona is that kind of a team. So I'm not saying IU's not capable of a good game more consistently, but I just have a good feeling when they get to Mackey that we're going to see Purdue be on the right side of this when it's all said and done. I did have another guy push back. His name's Troy Mitchell, say, these are the blue bloods of college basketball. All of them have rushed the court. And he showed me a list of the top national championship schools. And that's UCLA at 11, Kentucky at 8, North Carolina at 6, Duke at 5, Indiana also at 5, and UConn at 4. Speaking for Duke, North Carolina, Kentucky, and UCLA, pull me the picture showing their team storming the court. And I'll tip my cap to you on it because I can't recall any of those schools storming the court. Whether North Carolina and Duke are playing right now, neither school will storm the court. It will not happen. So
I think when Austin Rivers maybe hit, or was that at UNC when Austin Rivers hit like the step back 3 for the game winner?
They
that was
jumped
like
on it
10 years ago. They might have stormed then, but that might have been at UNC too.
I got it. All right, show me the picture and I'll tip my cap and say I was wrong. But Kentucky, I don't think I've seen them storm the court. UCLA, I don't think so. But maybe I'm wrong. Either way, have some fun with the rival fans on Twitter. Because to me, like I said, I just think if Purdue hits a game-winning shot on IU at the end of the year at Mackey, they're not storming the court. And I know we're picking nits here. It's a silly little side story to the whole rivalry, but this is how I'm going to end the show because that is where the difference is in this rivalry. Purdue will not storm the court, and I saw somebody say, well, Mackey's not built for storming the court. They have stormed the court at Mackey, so it is possible. Yeah, they've stormed the court. It was probably like 10, 12 years ago, but I've seen pictures where they have stormed the court. So
you were a Purdue fan 10 or 12 years ago, Brad?
I know they've stormed the court, Craig. We are moving on to end this show because we're approaching 10 till 7 o'clock Central Time, and that's when my cousin is playing. She's playing in a sectional championship. Highland is in the sectional championship around here, and she's a senior, and she has a chance to cut down the nets tonight. So I'm gonna go watch that game. Enjoy, her final games as a high school athlete. She's put a lot of hard work into this stuff. So I want to wrap things up. Once again, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. Want to give a shout out one last time to our sponsors. I want to give a shout out to FanBags. Make sure you're going over to their website for the best bags, on the circuit. They're actually, you can see them on the national circuit when they show them on ESPN. He sponsors some of the best throwers in the world. So go to www.fanbagscornhole.com and use the promo code BRAGS for 10% off. So make sure you visit fanbagscornhole.com. So, and then my other guys I got to shout out is Shire Insurance. Make sure you start with Shire. If you're looking for some new insurance on the scene, everybody's trying to always up the ante with some better insurance. So call 219-663-7274 for Shire Insurance Services or visit www.shireinsurance.com. New sponsors to our show. Certainly a welcomed addition to what we're trying to do here. Help kind of fund some of the stuff we're doing in our ventures and gas money and things of that nature. So welcome to the Boilers in the Stands special. And of course, our guys over at ISC Purdue, going to be bouncing some work off of them from time to time. So make sure you follow them at ISC_Purdue. Some really good content and some of the best pictures in the game. This is some of the stuff they do. Really, really good stuff as Zach Eady hammers it home there on Race Thompson. And there's Fletcher Lawyer. And there is the future National Player of the Year. 7 games to go, and he's going to lock that baby in. I mean, when do they announce National Player of the Year? When does that go down?
I think it's before March. Is it before March Madness?
Before March Madness?
I think so.
Or after. So
Yeah.
We did have a segment for game balls, but we're going to save that for wins only. I'm not giving out game balls for the other team. Might be a little weird to give out.
It's clearly Zach.
Yeah, we can give a game ball to
Yeah.
Zach Eady. If we're going to do, our new segment.
The KenPom MVP was still Zach Edey. So
Yeah.
even
So,
in the loss.
game ball
There you
goes
go.
across the board. As we go into wins, we'll all have different game balls. But for tonight, we'll just keep it short and sweet as I try to get out of here. Zach Edey, you get the game ball. You're the best player in the country. You've proved that time and again, and you proved it again here tonight. So the game ball goes to you. So that, I think, wrap things up for tonight as we get into our Midwestern goodbye. Normally we do final thoughts, but again, I'm trying to get out of here, trying to do my thing and go see my cousin play some sectional hoops here in Indiana. So we're wrapping it up. Ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for everyone tuning in. Stay tuned. Tomorrow afternoon, Craig and I will be talking with Sasha Stefanovic, a good friend of our show and what we do here, and former Purdue Boilermaker, number 7 all time in 3-pointers in Purdue men's basketball history. So shout out to Sasha for agreeing to come on. Go ahead,
And
Joe.
tune into the I'll be at Mackey, but tune into the Purdue IU women's game. Should be
Purdue IU women's
Yeah.
game tomorrow afternoon. Sold out crowd. Shout out to the Purdue contingent.
Gonna be fun.
For filling the house. And once again, make sure you follow Feed the Post at Feed the Post _ with Joe Jackson and Aiden Kuntz, a Purdue basketball podcast. You guys have a special guest coming on this week, correct?
Yes, we got Willie Berg, the red shirt, next up in the Brandon Brantley School of 7-footers. He'll be coming on Monday. So
Very nice.
looking forward to that.
That's great. I've been meaning to hear.
And for women's basketball fans, Joe and I are efforting to get one of the assistant coaches on. Thought it would happen this week, but they had to clear some stuff with SID, so maybe happen in the upcoming weeks.
Okay. Well, we'll see if we can get them in before Thursday. Have a couple shows possibly for you before the Thursday game. We'll have a post-game show against Michigan coming up on Thursday at Mackey Arena. Iowa. I'm sorry. Whatever yellow team. Iowa on Thursday, but maybe a couple shows before that. But tomorrow we will be back here live, licking our wounds, talking to Sasha Stefanovic, maybe more about the big picture and less about this close win or close loss here against the Indiana Hoosiers. So looking forward to talking to him. Make sure you tune in. Willie Berg going to be on Feed the Post. Sasha Stefanovic coming up here on Boilers in the Stands tomorrow afternoon. Thanks again for everybody tuning in. Thank you to Ryan Klein for coming on once again. Always appreciate his time and efforts for coming on and probably meet him down the road back on these channels here very, very soon. So shout out to him once again. Thank you for everyone for tuning in. Hit that like and subscribe button for Christ's sake. It's going to help us, and we appreciate all the help we can get. So that wraps things up for today. On to the next one. Boilers will be just fine. We got some bigger and better things coming up. Big Ten championships for the regular season, Big Ten tournament, and March Madness. Sasha, baby, all day long. We'll see you guys here tomorrow, ladies and gentlemen. Have a good night.